some time and you'll be back another day. I can see us breaking down the barrier. Oh yeah. With the speed of light we cross the stratosphere. Oh yeah. We can go so far, so far away. Baby, let's go far, so far, you and me. Let's dance the night away, we're locked together far away, you and me. We'll have a celebration to an unknown destination, can't you see? I can see us breaking down the barrier. Oh yeah. With the speed of light we cross the stratosphere. Oh yeah. We can go so far, so far away. Baby, let's go far, so far, you and me. We'll dance all night till the break of dawn. Come on now, let your feelings show. Oh baby. We'll dance all night till the break of dawn. Come on now, let your feelings show. Oh baby. We'll dance all night till the break of dawn. Come on now, let your feelings show. Oh baby. We'll dance all.
Hi everyone. Hello. I am so happy to see you all in the live chat today. So if you are watching the replay or if you're here live, welcome to Clutter Therapy. This is the live show where we talk about home, organizing home decor, and all things home and how to make your home a place where it hugs you instead of a place where it stresses you out. You don't want to be in a place that stresses you out. So this week, we are going to talk all about things closet. And let me turn my gain down just a bit because I can tell that my microphone is just a tad too intense. Where is the button? Where is the button? Here's the button. Okay, that is maybe a little bit better. Maybe that is perfect. Okay. So hello to everyone in the chat. So I'm very sorry to have postponed the show from last week to this week, but last week, of course, we were as a nation dealing with some very serious issues. If you are watching the replay at some other time, I am filming this on June 9th. I'm like, what day is it today? June 9th, 2020, and we have been dealing with a lot of serious issues in the United States. Dealing with racial profiling, racial injustice, and basically the whole Black Lives Matter movement. And I want to refer to it as a revolution at this point. As a person of color, as a Black person, I am very affected by these issues, of course. And last week, I spent a lot of the time being sad, and I wasn't able to bring my best self to you. But I just want to say a couple things before we start. If you want to skip this, if you're watching the replay, I'll put a timestamp down below. We can talk about closets. But as a child of the 80s, I was always the only token Black friend. And as a parents, my parents were two military physicians, so we moved all around the country and around the world. We lived in Germany overseas, where I was, again, the only Black friend. Very much a token Black person. I actually made best friends with the other little Black girl in the apartment complex that we lived in. And then we moved to Augusta, Georgia, which was a very an area where you don't find a lot of Black people. And of course I made friends with like the little Black girl up the street. We were like best friends, but I had other friends of other colors and races and things like that. But my parents always taught me that people are people, and to, not look at that as the first thing you see when you talk to people. But when you go out into the world, people are going to put you in a box, and be aware of that. And they always told me that I had to work twice as hard to get the same opportunities of people who weren't Black. And even now, I believe that even if I work twice as hard, it's going to be more difficult for me to have the same opportunities, because the problem at this point is systemic. I just want to say that if you're watching this channel, you probably don't have many issues surrounding Black people, because hi. However, if you're watching this channel, I also want you to, I want to encourage you to be kind and compassionate to others who are not only different colors than you, but who are different from you in other ways as well. If I had discounted someone who didn't have the same skin color as me, sexual identification, gender preferences, or sexual identification, let me start again. Didn't have the same skin color as me, or gender identity preference, they're not preferences, I believe, gender identity or sexual identity preferences at this point, I would be subtracting my life from so many amazing people. So I want to encourage you, instead of pointing the finger and judging and saying, I don't like you because of this thing that you have no control over, rather to have conversations with people who believe different things from you, who are different things from you. Have more conversations and less finger pointing. I know that this is more difficult than totally discounting someone, but you will bring so much more enrichment and joy into your life by being compassionate and allowing people who are different from you to enrich your life than shutting those people out immediately based on the color of their skin, gender identity preferences, and sexual preferences. Or religious preferences, anything like that. If they're different from you in any way, political differences, have more conversations. Conversations will move your relationships forward and maybe open your eyes to things you didn't understand. And I want to encourage you to educate your children. And when I was growing up, since I'm the daughter of 2 physicians, I was taught that bodies are bodies, and we are all 99.9% identical in our DNA. That the differences on the surface are very small. And I am very proud of my cultural and racial heritage. And there is room for every color of the rainbow. I don't want to see just red and orange. I want to see red, orange, yellow, green, blue, and ultraviolet. So I encourage you to support everyone, but especially the people who need it right now. And Black Lives Matter. Okay, so let's talk about closets. I don't know how to segue from that to talk about closets, but we're gonna get there. So closets are from what I can understand at this point, are very much an American thing. So originally closets were not even really what we think of today. So people started keeping their clothes in, wardrobes and stuff a long time ago. There wasn't like a whole separate room for closets. And then people, if you had a bedroom back in like a long time ago in Europe, you were either very rich or like royalty. If you had a place to sleep in that your bed was in, other than like the main area of your home, a lot of people slept in like the kitchen area, what we think of as like the living space. Having a separate bedroom was something a very privileged person would have. So when bedrooms started to become a little more fashionable, they were a place where people would go to get some privacy. So it was like, so in a sense, that would be like a closet. So, and that is where the term closeted gets some of its meaning. So like if people are having private conversations, they're having closeted conversations. If you are a secret fan of Futurama, you're a closeted Futurama fan. But eventually, closets became a place where people kept their secret items and their clothes. Eventually, closets, I think, as a storage keeping place, sort of went out of fashion in Europe. This is why when you're going over to Europe, and we'll talk about a European closet in a little bit, you don't see a lot of what we think of as standard closets, which is like a tiny little room to store things. It's more prevalent in the United States than I think in Europe. I don't know about other parts of the world. I'm sorry to be ignorant, but I know that in Europe, closets are less popular. In the United States, closets more popular. I find that in older buildings, when I go and look at older buildings, the closets are very, very differently shaped and problematic. But there are 3 or 4 different categories of closets that I like to refer to when I talk about closets. So let's talk about the closet types. I have a super crude drawing, you guys. This is stuff that I got educated on when I was a Container Store employee. So just bear in mind. So these are views of closets from a bird's eye point of view. This is like the floor plan view, it's called. So the first one over on it's a mirrored version. So I hope that this is still correct. The upper left-hand corner is a reach-in closet. This is as you can see, I've labeled the walls. This is a labeling system that I actually was taught, where the back wall is wall A, the 2 sides are B and D, and this is a closet this is the rules for a closet that are shaped like a rectangle, and the door wall is wall C. Now, you can have, more than 4 walls in the closet. There are, closets that are like really weird shaped. Actually, when I was at Container Store, I think once I got to wall M when I did a drawing, and I was like, what the heck? So, because I was doing some drawing off of a floor plan. So the first closet that I like to refer to as reach-in. These closets, as you can see, wall B and D are much shorter than wall A. Wall A tends to be, maybe up to 24 inches is usually the shortest one. I mean, they can be smaller, but walls B and D are usually could be the shallowest one could be like 7 inches, but usually no longer than 24 inches or 25 inches deep, because they need to accommodate a hanger. Hanger accommodation usually somewhere between 17 and 25 inches. Optimally, you want to have more than like 24 inches to accommodate hanging clothes, because clothes usually take up about 21 inches of hanging space. Then you have below that you have your step-in closet. Step-in closet is very problematic because it allows you to step in the closet and be enveloped inside of it, but not walk around in it. And this can present some problems, because you can see walls B and D, usually between like 30 to 36 inches, are pretty deep, but you really can't. It presents a problem because if you start to use those walls to utilize solution, it can create some sort of a problem. You can feel claustrophobic, or it just doesn't. It actually reduces efficiency in a closet. The last type of closet that I like to refer to is a walk-in closet. Walk-in closet walls B and D are super long, and walls A and C are wide enough so that you can actually walk in the closet and make a small circle and turn around. These are usually what I see. I have seen really weird shapes of closets. I've seen like closets that are like triangles, closets that have like L shapes. L shapes another common shape of closet that I see, but basically they fit into one of those 3 categories. You can reach in, grab something with your hand. You can step inside and grab something with your hand, hopefully, or like one of those like claw things. I love those little claw things. Or you can step in and actually walk around. So usually, and we'll talk a lot about clothing closets in this video, and we'll talk about closets in general, but clothing closets tend to be where there's a lot of room or a big margin for error. Because we as a society, as a people, have a lot more clothes than we used to. We have entire wardrobes, and we have out of season wardrobes. We have stuff for cold weather, stuff for hot weather, stuff for the beach, stuff for formal gatherings, stuff for just hanging out. We've got lots of pajamas. So we've got a big selection of clothes, and some of that accumulation has come after the closet was built. So if the closet was built in, like, say, the 20s, the people didn't have that many clothes in the 20s, or they didn't have like clothes for every different season, or blah, blah, blah. So there's going to be less space. So the main thing I recommend for people having clothing closet problems is to separate your closet into zones. And usually this involves hanging clothes, short hanging, long hanging. These are 2 zones. And a lot of people say there's clients who talk to me about medium hanging, but I always count that as long hanging, because medium hanging, you can't like double it up, and it's not going to take up like the entire length. But and you can have some things that are medium hanging that I would consider long hanging. Like my long hanging basically are like my dresses, and some of my dresses don't come all the way down to the floor. So I'm counting all medium hanging items as long hanging. Accessories is another zone. Shoes are another zone. And if you want, this an extra zone, if you have the space, are for things that are folded, or piles of things. This is basically the zones that I want people to think about when they organize closets, and to have everything in the same category pretty much together, and to take advantage of all the vertical space. The problem I find that it plagues most people is that they're not efficiently using vertical space, or that they simply have too many items for their lifestyle or what they're using. Too many items as a general statement always upsets me, because like some people need 5 shirts and some people need 50 shirts, and they may have the same amount of use out of them, but it just depends on your lifestyle. I don't like to judge people based on quantity of items. Remember, it's the relationship between you and the item, not the item. So that's the problem. So we're going to talk about some closet problems that were sent to me today in the live stream. So I'm very excited because I got some videos. Videos are super fun. Oh, before I talk about that, I'm going to talk about problematic closet shapes. So there are a few shapes and things that occur with closets that are, I feel like, an afterthought in the builder, or they were just, kind of made a long time ago so that the shape is no longer relevant. So the first problematic shape is long wing walls, or some people call these return walls. This is a problem I find most prevalent in older homes, or I like to call it the New England closet, because I've never seen anything like that before I moved to New England. This can create a huge issue, especially if you're storing clothes inside or anything that needs to be, hung, because usually these closets are not very deep as well. But if they are, you can definitely get some more use out of these. And I recommend with these types of closets to really take advantage of walls B and D. Those are those side walls. I'm sorry I didn't put them on my drawing. But know that when you do that, you're going to lose storage on wall A. So you have to sort of give and take a little bit with how much space you're going to get out of this closet. If you cannot widen the opening, like if you don't own the space or you're not in a position to do any construction, you're really going to have to work with the side walls and sacrifice some of the utility of wall A, the back wall. The other shape that is problematic that I encounter a lot of the time is where the wall is sloping, and in particular the wall that's in the back of the closet, wall A, is very tiny or short, and the wall that is the door is on, wall C, is very tall. In these closets, I always recommend that you take advantage, if you can, what's that noise? You can take advantage, if you can, of the side walls or some freestanding solution, but I always recommend that for these problematic spaces that you really seek professional consultation with these spaces and get a custom solution, because otherwise you're going to not get very efficient use out of these spaces unless you're really creative or really great with construction. Let me make this a little larger because it's like taking up the whole picture. Or if you're very handy, you can probably construct something to make this look really nice and have it be really amazing. But I always recommend that people get professional help with these spaces because they can be very problematic. But you can definitely still use these spaces. Even though they're problematic, they can still be used. But you're definitely going to have to get some custom solution. So I'm sorry, I just talked for like 20 minutes. Let's see what's going on in the chat. Sarah says her closet's a step in. There's all this extra space you just can't use. Do a thing with it. Yeah, it's not. Yeah. So the side walls on a step in closet are a good space, and I'm going to reiterate this when I talk about one of these entries. Are a good space for things that are small and don't take up a lot of depth. So in like utility closets, these are a good place for things like brooms, mops, the step stool, whatever, or belts and accessories in clothing closets. So that you don't feel like you're losing utility out of those walls because they're there. You might as well, use them, because most of your solution is going to be towards the back of the closet in these step-in spaces. Step-in spaces are the bane of my existence because they're in theory they look cool. You can step inside, you're like, wow. But every time I'm like, well, I'm taking up 20 inches of depth with whatever custom solution I'm putting in this closet, and then you can then step in and mess around with stuff on the sides. So as long as you use that wall on the side in a very thoughtful way, they can be organized spaces, but they're very problematic. So the first entry I got last week is from Anne, and we're gonna watch her video right now, if I can do it.
Okay, here's the closet that I need your help with. This is a utility closet and a linen closet in my home, which is a raised ranch. And although I know it looks rather neat, it is because it doesn't have much in it. It is 25 inches across the back. It is 33.5 inches along the side. It is 90 inches tall. And the most challenging part is that although you can't see it unless I back up a little here, the door frame is 17 inches. 17 inches to get some sort of shelving plan in here. I really need your help. I don't know what to do with it. I can't put the towels in here, the paper towels in here, the microfiber cloths, the cloth napkins. Can't do a Costco run and put it in here. Have to put stuff in the garage. I'd rather not do that. And by the way, before you go, check out those mats. They're just where you told me to put them. So I really, like I say, I really could use your help on this. I don't know what to do. That was the best we could come up with. That's been up there for 20 years. I could do better with your help. Thanks. Bye.
So I don't know if you guys could hear. I think the audio was really low on that. But she's got this. First of all, you're adorable, and I live for that. I just live for it. I realize that I feel like my camera, I have it set on a mirror situation. I think that it's spins around when I change scenes. So I'm sorry if I'm freaking anyone out by that. I just maybe noticed. But Anne has this step-in utility closet, and first of all, I want to say that it does look very neat. And those are the times when I turn up at people's houses, and I'm like, well, what's the problem? But I want to encourage you to, and I did like that you mentioned that you live in a raised ranch. Raised ranch is a kind of house that was popularized, I think, in the 60s. I knew they started building those in the 20s in the West Coast, but I think they're more popular in the 60s. So meaning that you probably have pretty good drywall in there, and I definitely recommend that you if you want to get full utility out of this closet, that you invest in a custom solution. I know that's not what you wanted to hear, but definitely invest in a custom solution. That's the way you're going to get the most out of that closet. I do love that you had the medications in there. Very good. But the other thing I want to make sure you get comfortable with, and I had these notes and I'm not reading off these notes, because you're probably only going to, because the closet is so narrow, it's like you said, 25 inches. That's a little over 2 feet. That's super narrow. And the door is even smaller at 17 inches. So I definitely recommend something. If you want to not get a custom solution for that space and you want to get more out of it, I would recommend that you have something that you can pull out of the space or get full use of the depth of the space. And that means anything that pulls forward, like a drawer, or something you can actually pull out of the space, such as shelving on wheels. However, I highly recommend that you have a professional come in and get a custom design for that space, because I think it's one of those really weird step-in closets where there's like stuff on the walls to be utilized. However, I also recommend that you get comfortable with having a step stool in the space for you to access stuff on the top, because I don't see any reason why you can't go to Costco and grab a bunch of paper towels and start and actually stack them pretty high on the top shelf if you can get a really tall shelving solution, and you can have maybe like 2 or 3 feet of space, because and first of all, I always recommend that when people put things up high, that they be like light things, so that if it falls down and hits you in the head, it's not a big deal. Because if you're on your step stool, it can be a little bit precarious. But as a short person, I have step stools in all of my storage spaces where I have things that I cannot reach. And sometimes you're just going to need to take advantage of the vertical space. But just think how often you're going to, if it's stuff you hardly ever need, or if it's like back stock of items. And that's usually what I like to do, is have, if there's a space that's hard to reach, or you have to get on a step stool to reach, that's where you want to put your like backup stuff. So maybe you open a package of paper towels and you put 3 rolls down, and you have the rest all up there ready to go, ready to grab them when you want to. You can store like tall items that are really light up there, or you know what? If you want to get the mother load of toilet paper and stack it up, I don't think it would be a bad idea, but just take advantage of the vertical space. And I also want to reiterate the use of the sidewalls. I think you had some hooks up there, which was really great. It looked amazing. You could even make it work even more for you by putting brooms, mops, even like a small cordless vacuum. I saw that you had a upright vacuum in there. So a custom shelving solution, you could probably accommodate for that. We just have to allow, space to push it and get it in and get it out, and make sure you weren't obstructing the way for it to come in and out. The other thing I want to recommend for that space is, and I'm like a Container Store stand, but is the Alpha door and wall rack. And I do know that most of the little, actually, did I have a picture? I got a picture. The Alpha door and wall rack, the little bins that are sold for it happen to be, a lot of them are too wide for that door, but they do sell some smaller ones that are about 13 inches. I think they're the narrow size. And I think there's 2. I think there's a narrow, shallow, and a narrow, deep. And so that would be a good place to get some of those smaller things out of the way, so that you could put the larger things on shelving in that closet. So I hope that helps. Someone asked how tall I am in the chat. I am 5 foot and 1.5 inches. And thank you very much. I will take my 1/2 inch. I always identify with my 1/2 inch when I'm at the doctor's office. They're like 5'1". I'm like, no. 5'1.5". I need my 1/2 inch. And I like to have my hair taller so that, it makes me a little bit taller. I don't actually mind being a short person. You can get like tall. My husband's like tall. He can always grab stuff for me. I like that. I like, oh, can you get that for me? And then, he feels like a hero, and I feel like, I'm like, oh, yeah. So that was so dumb. But like being a short person has its benefits. It does. I was the only person, and this is like a weird thing, when I was growing up, and I was and even as an adult, which I have to say, when I was working, I was teaching horseback riding, and the ponies, the smaller equines, didn't really get enough exercise being used for like beginner lessons. You know, you have a little kid, you put him on the pony, you do your lead line lesson, you walk around ponies like, what? I'm bored. So when I was growing up, and even as an adult, my teacher would always be like, hey, Kay, we're going to get this pony exercised. Can you ride it? And I was like, fine. Because if I'm 5'1" and 100 pounds, I can definitely ride a little, like, 13 hand or 12 hand pony, and it's fine. And I got a little, like, I have some fun pictures of me on like very small horses and ponies. And I still love ponies to this day. I think they're cheeky because I feel like they're small. They can get away with more stuff, So if any of you guys ride horses, you know the deal. Ironically, the horse that I actually owned, the horse that I actually purchased for myself, was a very tall animal. And when I fell from that height, it was like not a good time. But ponies, good time. So that's an aside. That's a totally aside. Okay, so the next closet problem we're going to watch is Theano, and we're going to watch her German closet issue.
Hi Kay, my name is Theano, and I'm reaching out to you for some clutter therapy. We are a military family stationed in Germany, and because of that, we don't have built-in closets here in Germany. It's just not as big of a thing. So what we have is a big room that is, or not big, I mean, it's pretty big, room that is our closet, with 3 wardrobes in it that the military lends us to keep our clothes in. So unfortunately, those have to stay. But let me show you around and try to get some feedback. And then this little wardrobe we purchased ourselves to kind of house the overflow. And these are our 3 wardrobes. I'll show you the inside of mine. The other 2 are my husband's. We can leave those alone. My husband likes to kind of keep things easily accessible and out in the open, but then they just sort of end up piling on his dresser, and I was wondering if you had some feedback on that. And then as far as in my closet, so I wear a lot of skirts. So I have skirts and things there, a couple of pants, t-shirts and light shirts, and then some outerwear. And then some of my shoes. I have some down by the entry where we have a shoe rack, but I have a few shoes in here. And then just boxes, like shoe boxes in the back, which I guess I could just move those maybe in the basement. And then the problem with being here in Germany is I'm a very sensitive to cold person. So not only do I have my t-shirts and things that I wear during the day, but then in the evening, sometimes I will change to just long sleeve shirts because I'm cold. So I have that and pants. And I do have one of these organizers where I have some hats in there. So I didn't know if maybe having a few more of those would kind of make it look a bit better. And I can't really keep much up there because on top of the closets, because I can't really reach it. I need a little step stool to actually reach up there. So it's more for out of season or infrequently used items. So looking forward to any input if you have a chance to address my video. Thank you. Bye.
Bye. Oh my gosh, you guys are so cute. I have to say, I really have enjoyed watching these videos of you guys' spaces because I feel like I'm there. And it's so helpful to see, the space in a very in a complete way, you know what I mean? Because sometimes when I get pictures, like I don't get the full context of what the entire space is like, and that's really helpful. Usually when I talk to people on video chat, I ask them to show me a very, a full area of the space. Sometimes I'm like, just give me a full house tour. And that's usually what I do when I go to people's houses too. If they have a problem with one space, I say, I'm like, well, let's talk about that space. But before we do that, I'd love to see the entire rest of the house, because it gives me an idea of how the systems are working, and actually an idea of a little bit of the behavior of the family or of the person that lives there. So the first thing I want to say is, oh my gosh, Germany, military family, I can relate. Thank you for your service, your husband. That's amazing. I don't know where you guys are stationed in Germany, but I do know that it is freezing there. and I do know that there is not a lot of sunlight in the winter. And I do know that, but however though, it is magical at Christmas time. That's the only thing I really miss about Germany, is like being there around Christmas time, because it was just tray magical. Oh my gosh, like the Christmas markets, the little like ginger cookies with the icing on so good. Anyway, so the first thing you mentioned is, by the way, also a shout out for the editing in that video. Like, bravo. I loved it. So the first thing I want to mention is the space to me, and I love that it's like one room dedicated to like a wardrobe room. I think that's great. I love that the military gives you those like 3 wardrobes and is like, here you go. Like, that's really, it's not enough for most people, you know, or definitely like most Americans. So the first thing you mentioned is your husband's dresser and the top of it getting kind of cluttered and stuff. The more, and usually the first things I like to recommend with things like that is the issue of what the behavior is associated with the stuff that's getting cluttered up on the top of the dresser. So evaluating what the stuff is, and I can see that it was like, you know, come out of the bathroom, like put the deodorant on stuff and like maybe put some accessories on. And I feel like I feel like, and I know for sure, my father had the exact same issue. We never solved it. Like, I wasn't an organizer when I lived with them, but he always was like piling stuff on the top of the dresser. So really evaluating like what is happening, like take stock of inventory of what those items are and how they ended up there, and when or whether or not they're being used. If it's just stuff that's ending up there because it has no place to go, then the obvious or not so obvious solution is to find another home for it and to make sure that he consistently places that item in its home, or that maybe stuff is ending up there because it either needs to be discarded or you're just not sure what to do with it. So if it's stuff that he's using all the time, then you probably need to set up some sort of organization system. But the first thing I need to reiterate is it's usually a behavioral issue. You like stuff, it just ends up there because like you don't know what to do with it, or you just don't have a good system going. So based on what the items are is probably going to give you a good idea of what to do and where to start with that solution. And I know you're in the chat, so maybe and I'll go back and check and see, maybe you can tell me what most of that stuff is. Maybe that'll give me some more context to work with. The next thing I want to mention that you mentioned is the stuff in your own wardrobe that was hanging there. So there are a few ways, and you wanted to maximize your space in there. So there are a few ways to maximize storage space when you're talking about hanging items. So the first method I always recommend is buying those thin hangers. You can buy thin hangers that are flocked with like a velvety material, or you can just buy thin hangers that are like, I think they're made of some tacky plastic material. I don't know how easy it is going to be to get your hands on these items when you're over in the EU, but I know I do have some links excuse me in my Amazon store for other stuff, but I don't know how easy it is to get your hands on that stuff in the EU. I do know though that you guys do have IKEA, or IKEA as we call it over here, and I don't know if they sell those or not. My other recommendation is that you buy hangers that are a consistent size, style, and shape. You don't have to buy all like those huggable flocked hangers, but that you buy hangers that are either like all the same size, matching. They don't have to be the same color, but they should be the same shape. And I usually recommend that people buy matching hangers because if you have different thicknesses and sizes of hangers, it can eat up some of the available space. The next thing I want to recommend is that you can really maximize your hanging space by actually doubling up on your hanging space. I don't think you have enough space to do this in your wardrobe, but I'm going to talk about it anyway. You can buy those double hang solutions where and I don't have a picture to share, I'm sorry, but I do have some stuff in my Amazon store, which I will link down below at the end of the chat. I didn't have time to do it before the chat, but I will correct it before the end of the day. You can buy those like double hanging hangers bar that you put on your closet rod, and it's got another bar down below it where you can hang extra items. If your items are short enough, maybe you have shorter skirts, maybe you can get away with some of that, but it looks like your wardrobe is not tall enough to accommodate that. The other thing that I recommend to maximize hanging space, and I don't love these, but I've used them before, is cascading hanger solutions. So there's a hanger solution where you have a hanger like this. So this is my little like triangle hanger, but then you can like imagine that my hand is still here, that you can have a hook and you can hang another hanger. I actually have one. Why am I making these like little like hand shapes? Hold on. I should close. Well, I'm gonna go back and turn that. So this is the hanger with all of our masks on it. Welcome to Pandemic 2020. And as you can see, it's got a little guy that you can put here, and you can use it oh my gosh. It's on incorrectly, I think. What is my problem? There we go. I have used these things, I swear. And you can put another hanger on it like that. So you can cascade your hangers. That's another solution that I recommend. And let me put this back because they're masks and I don't want to like just put them on the surface and have them all dirty. You know, Pandemic 2020. I'll be right back. The thing about the cascade hangers is that it can become a tiny bit problematic, but it can definitely increase your vertical hanging space because it's just, I used them, I think, for a while for cardigans, and I find them to be incredibly useful. It's just, I think the thing I don't like about that is it doesn't look pretty. But if you really don't care about that, if you don't care about it was very functional, but it did not look cute by any sense of the word. It did not look cute. It was rough. There are many versions of this cascading hanger thing. There's like ones where you can like the arm opens and closes on the hanger. There's lots. I've linked some in my Amazon store, which is usually linked down below. I don't know. I don't think I've changed the description in this live stream. I don't know. Guys, honestly, 100%. I'm a hot mess last week and a hot mess this week. So just being 100, but I will fix everything hopefully by the end of the day. So I would recommend you start with that. But the main thing that I think is going to help you, and I'm sorry to spend so much time on this, is to focus on having the length of items where you're hanging all items of similar length should be together. Now, I know that this is problematic for people that are like, well, I have a long dress that I wear for formal occasions, but it's not with my long casual dresses. In cases where you really want to maximize the vertical space, you might have to sacrifice some of this grouping. So I have a very crudely drawn, you guys, I am not a very good artist, okay, when it comes to this closet stuff. However, you can see the picture on the left is a closet where the lengths of items is inconsistent. So you have some shorter items stored next to some longer items, next to some medium items that are together. And you have all these empty pockets of space, but not a large pocket of space. Then on the right, I hope the right and left are same on this video. On the right, you have the items that are consistent length stored next to one another so that you create a big pocket where the short hanging items are and, nothing where there's long hanging stuff. So that can help you take advantage of some of that vertical space to store other items, or you can do like the double hanging thing with that. Another thing is that bins, you mentioned that you would probably like to get some bins to make it look neater, and I definitely think that that's a great option for you. If you are not the kind of person that's an out of sight, out of mind person, that could work for you. I happen to be one of the things where if I put things in a bin and I don't look in it, they don't exist. So if you are that kind of person, I'd recommend that you get a mesh one or a translucent one or even a clear one so that you can see what's inside, or something that's very easy for you to pull out and look inside. The other thing I recommend is to get shelf dividers, and I think that you had a shelf where you can like put little shelf dividers on. You can slide them on in between. I'm making like fun. It's a puppet show. You can slide the little like arms of the shelf divider in there, and you can divide the shelves that way, so that the piles of items, folded clothes that you have on there, don't run into each other and there's some separation between them, so it's not as chaotic. I think that dividing things is it along with looking very beautiful, it lessens the chaos in spaces. Because sometimes when I was first starting doing this, I was like, well, why would I want to buy drawer dividers, right? Because if I place things down and we're neat about it and intentional about it, wouldn't that be good enough? And I find that to the eye, it creates chaos if there's no division between groups of items, and it looks chaotic and stresses me out. And I find that that's true for most people. So creating some division can really help things look neater, even if they are the same without that division. It can help you psychologically. And the other thing I want to recommend, I need to like hurry up. The other thing I want to recommend is that the area on the floor that has your shoes and stuff and has other stuff in the back, I want to just reiterate to you that in a wardrobe, under clothes and behind clothes is where things go to get lost and die. So I usually like to refrain from having clients use the floor of the space for storing items like directly on the floor. But if they can't help it, I recommend getting a shoe rack to maximize that vertical space down there and to keep items on the floor very much contained. So the items on the floor that are back there that you could move down to another space could be replaced by out of season items, so that they're not really like out of mind, that you're not accessing them very often or don't need to access them, but they're just out of the way temporarily, and you don't need to think about them for like maybe 6 months. And when it's 6 months, you can trade them out for things that are then not being used for another 6 months. That way you don't have to access it, you don't have to pull it, you have to go back there. I mean, that's like, I found that out the hard way, actually having a personal experience with that. So I usually refrain from having people store things directly on the floor unless it's very intentional. The floor of the closet is where things go to get lost. It's where I find things when I'm at people's houses where people go, oh my gosh, I was looking for that. I'm like, closet floor. Closet floor is like some forest where there's like lots of like little animals running around who steal things. So be careful of the closet floor. But otherwise, I don't think it looks terrible. And I think you did a good job. So there's some stuff to think about. Let's see. Next. And last, but not least, is Victoria. So Victoria sent me these photos of her coat closet, and she was wondering, actually, let me read her entry. She says, my front hall closet is in a dark pit of despair. I've tried little things here and there to make it better, but keeping the existing layout more or less. My spouse does not care what I do as long as it works. Since I'm actually the handy one, which means I'm basically at hamster level, I'm trying to keep it simple but neat. It is actually quite tall, about 7 feet high, 37 inches wide, and 21 inches in depth. We moved into, when the coat rack, which was there when we moved into, is 66 inches inside the closet. Oh, 60, okay. I thought of putting it in a drawer of some type, but the long coats would get cut off. which I prefer to hang long. Thanks for any help or recommendations. Well, thank you for sending these pictures. So I can tell that you live in a cold climate like I do, and I can relate because I have several coats because I get bored and I don't want to I don't want to wear the same coat every day, even though that's what I actually end up doing. Like, let's be real. When it's like, let's be honest, in January, February, and March, I wear the same coat every day without fail. In April and in May and June, I will wear a different coat. And in the fall, I wear different coats, my cute coats. But in winter, I wear the same coat literally every day. The cute coats only come out for fall, and spring, which I'm really sad about. But it does look like you live in a cold climate and you have boots and lots of lots of big puffy parkas and stuff like that. And I can definitely relate, but they take up a lot of width space. And I want to encourage you, for the first thing to do is because I mentioned that 3 months out of the year, or maybe 6 months, actually 3 months out of the year, I wear one coat and one coat only, is to downsize on coats if you can. If it's only the two of you, I want to encourage you to see which ones you actually prefer to wear and which ones get the most use, and either find another place for the others. If they're a special occasion coat, you don't need to take up valuable real estate with it. Or if it's a coat you just haven't reached for in 5 years, just to discard it. I know it's really hard to make donations during pandemic, but hold on to it. And then after it's safe to donate, then you can find another home for it. The other thing I recommend is, again, a shoe rack for the boots. I know it's so great. The closet floor, again, is super, super insane. I want to bring up the scene again so that you guys can get a look at, or a view of what I'm looking at. Actually, here's a second picture as well. So there were boots on the floor. And there's actually some other stuff in there too, which I want to say that you want to make sure that the closet is doing whatever jobs you allocate it to. So I saw there was some gift wrap in there and some de-icer, which totally I think belongs in there, because when you that's something you grab as you leave the house. But maybe find a new home for the wrapping paper if you can. And I didn't see where you had your accessories. So the other thing I was recommending, along with a boot rack or shoe rack, so you can take up more of that vertical space, is I don't know what your entryway is like, but there might be some solution that you can store that's outside of your closet for your boots. Because I know that when you walk in from the snow, especially if it's slushy, the boots are disgusting and wet. And it would be nice to have a place for them to dry. Going back to the length, going back to talking about the coats, the length of the coats, I know that you had a couple in there that you said were long hanging, you didn't want to accommodate for. So the thing that I recommend is actually measuring how long your longest garment is in there and deciding whether or not you want to accommodate for it. I had this same experience in my own coat closet, which is over there. And my husband does not have long coats anymore. I think he had one long coat when we met, but it's no longer. I have one very long North Face coat that comes all the way almost to my ankles, and I wear it a lot. But I have one garment that is long, and I decided that when I was planning this space over here, there's a video about it, you can watch it, that I did not want to plan the system for that space to accommodate for that one coat in a hanging way. So I gave it a hook, and I was like, this is where it's going to live when I'm using it, and when I'm not using it, it can go, it can be stored. So decide whether or not you want to accommodate just for, one or two items. The other thing I recommend is, and I do like the idea of putting drawer units in there. It's kind of tricky because you do have to place them directly in front of the opening to have them function. But I would be more inclined to tell you to get shelving for your boots, or even to have, if you have regular shoes in there, to get one of those hanging shoe organizers. I used to think those were really kind of silly, but I have really found success with those with clients who either lose their shoes on the floor, or are willing to give a little bit of hanging space to shoes, and they will take up a good amount of hanging space. The other thing about having coats, like big puffy coats, is that they really can't be put on those like thin hangers if they're very heavy, because those thin hangers don't, as cool as they are, often don't accommodate a bunch of like bulkier items like jackets or long coats, because they're a little bit flimsy. They're good for like a blouse or t-shirts and stuff like that, but it becomes, you need more support for that coat. But I would encourage you though to buy the thinnest hanger you can buy for those coats, to allow for a little more, and it will get you inches. It's like almost minutia, but will get you a little bit more hanging space. I have chrome hangers in my closet for coats. Of course they're very strong, but they also are very thin, and they give me just a little bit more hanging room to have that stuff. I also recommend that you make the door do a little more work than it's doing now. So again, elf a door and wall rack, or like use some more hooks to make the door do a lot more work than it's doing now, because I feel like doors can really, really help when you're trying to organize the space and you're trying to get like little things off the floor, like shoes. I love the little like shoe rack that I have in our closet. I think it's awesome. First I had mixed feelings about it, because I was like, ew, I have to like put this on here like this every time I get shoes. I take my shoes off, but I actually really like them because it keeps the soles off of the floor, which sounds really crazy and like I don't know, but I do appreciate that the soles don't touch anything when I hang my shoes up, and I don't have to deal with them on the floor, because again, the floor is where things go to die. So I always encourage people to use the floor with intention, because the floor is problematic. And I had one more thing to say, and it like left. I could see it fly away. You know how you can see thoughts fly away? If you're like, if something is escaping. What was that? Oh, my other recommendation is that you brighten up the space with one of those little like push on. You can buy like those cheap push on lights that you stick in the closet, and it's a sensor light, so that whenever you open the space, the light comes on. It would make your life so much easier if you lit up the closet a little bit. Like, I know that like those closets are so scary. But having some light in there, and they work with like LED lights and batteries. You don't have to like really install anything. But I find that it's very helpful for you to find things. I've put those up in many closets, and they've been very, very helpful. So let's go to the chat. Wow, we have like 5 minutes left. Crazy. I can't believe I talked for that long. I am just chatting. Candace, you would love to see a link for the chrome hangers. I got them from the Container Store. I don't know if they're exclusive to the Container Store. I will find out. But they're super, super cool. The thing about them that I love the most is they make a fun. It's a hanger, so it's shaped like a triangle, so it acts like a triangle because it's a chrome triangle. And if you have two empty ones next to one another, like they make this fun like wind chime noise when they move around. I like my whole like thing with being a musician is that I am like very affected and very influenced by the sounds the items make. We have 2 new washer and dryers, and they make a little fun sound. They have a little song when it's done. It's like when it's done a cycle. And we've lived here for like 4 months. It does not get old. Every time the washer and dryer are done and they do the little song, and I'm like, oh, that's so cute. It never gets old for me. I love them. I think the way that things make sounds is very, very important to me. What is your preferred way to hang, store jeans and trousers? I can never decide what's best. Whatever way is best based on your own behavior. So I found, for me personally, if you were to Kay Patterson, I like to fold my jeans. I've worked at the Gap when I was 16, 17, and I was taught how to fold jeans in like a really specific way, and I've been doing that ever since then. And I like to fold them. I have clients that like to hang them and allocate hanging space for them. Whatever method works for you. My husband also hangs his jeans. I prefer to fold, and then I like file fold them in the drawers, and then because I can tell which ones are which, and I only have gosh, how many pairs of jeans do I have now? Maybe like 6. But I like to fold and then file put in a drawer so that I can actually see every pair as I pull the drawer open. I am 100% an advocate of the file folding, or the method that was popularized by Marie Kondo. It's been around for centuries, and it's not centuries. It could be. But the way of putting things in a drawer where they're sitting this way as you open the drawer instead of stacked on top of one another, because it's problematic if you can't see the item at the bottom and you want that item, right? You don't know it's there, but you have to take them all out and grab the thing at the bottom. You save yourself lots of time and aggravation if you just file fold them so that you can see all the items. I don't know. It's life changing. It's I don't know why I wasn't doing it earlier. Like, seriously. People hang jeans. It doesn't work for me. Because the fabric, denim fabric is so heavy that like I find that like you got to put them on a hanger. Some people like have them clipped. It's too much work for me. So I fold them and I put them in a drawer, and I actually go through jeans really quickly because I'm doing a lot of stuff. I'm wearing them a lot, and I'm doing a lot of stuff where I wear out the backs and the pockets, and I just wear them out really quickly, so I don't spend a lot of money on jeans. Like, I don't have expensive jeans, like designer jeans. I just have like Target jeans. I found like in the last like few years that like spending money on nice jeans is not really worth it unless you are like intentionally trying to look cute. And I did have a couple of really nice pairs of jeans that were like fancy. One didn't fit anymore after a while, which I was super sad about, and then the other I just got rid of because I was like, I never wear these. File fold, yes, you're welcome. File folding is like so helpful. I do the same. I mean, I don't have like a lot of trousers because like who needs I don't need trousers, right? Let's be real. I have one pair of black dress pants that I wear at concerts, or not at concerts, but like during concerts when I'm on stage. And usually I don't wear them. I wear them they're for like ensemble performances, like choir performances. I have like black outfits, and I have one pair of black pants, and I just fold them and put them in the drawer. I can't be bothered to like get them to be fancy. They're like the only item of my concert clothes that doesn't live with the rest of my concert clothes, which I have a separate space for in my bedroom because they don't need to take up that much real estate, because I'm not reaching for my concert blacks every day, just once or twice a month, because I don't, I'm not like that busy with gigs, but like, during the pandemic, I'm definitely not busy at all. But actually things are looking like there might be more opportunities in terms of singing. So tomorrow, that's why I rescheduled this live from tomorrow to today. I'm doing a very interesting project tomorrow with some of my opera family. And I'm very anxious to see how it turns out. So I have to learn a song real quick. And I will be documenting it. So it'll be up on the channel in maybe, not anytime soon, maybe in 4 weeks or something like that, because I do have content scheduled to go live for, I'm very much ahead. But you'll definitely be seeing that in a future video. So it is 2:01, and I thank you guys for coming and hanging out with me and talking about closets. Next week, I actually want to continue talking about closets, if that's okay. But next week, I would love to focus on clothing closets specifically. So if you have a problem with your clothing closet and storing your clothes, well, let's maybe talk about, maybe let's open it up to clothing organization in general. So that way, we'll have more options. You can talk about your wardrobes, drawers, things like that. I would love for you to send me videos or photographs if you're feeling camera shy. The link is always down below, I think. But it is Clutter Therapy on my website, and hopefully I will fix the link. I should have a little thing where I flash where the thing is. I'm a hot mess. All right, guys. Clover's here. Oh my gosh, he's totally. I'll show you a little bean before I go. How about that? Everybody wants to see the bean. He's knocked out because he had the most fun exercising today. Look, he doesn't even look like he looks like he's dreaming. Actually, I can see that his eyes are open. So he's awake, but he's just super tired. So there's a little bean. Everybody say hello to the bean. Oh, wow, he is tired. He's also super dirty. So he needs to have a bath. So that will really be something I will do before the end of the week. But I hope you guys are having a great morning, great evening, great afternoon, wherever you are. And I will see you in the next one. Thanks for coming. Bye.